Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the COP28 Digital Cross-Screen Pavilion. It's by the TCP, Taiwan Climate Partnership. And actually, we are talking about the digital cross-screen by the ICT industry. All of the ICT industry suffer the problem of the climate change. Not all the standard from the global, but also from the future of the ICT industry because of the C-band or something. So lots of issues we are talking about here. So today our topic is emerging technologies to tracking climate change. Especially we focus on the digital empowerment. So we have 3 speakers and they will talk something. And later on, we will have a panel discussion about how to use the digital tools. How can we reduce the greenhouse gas emission, and using some kind of new technology to solve the problem. So right now, I will give the floor to our first speaker. He's Henny Azam, Asia Sustainability Lead of the Microsoft. You know, Microsoft give a lot of support of this time. Thank you very much. Let's give the floor to Henny Azam, please.
Thank you very much for having me. Really honored to be with the team members of the Taiwan Climate Partnership and fellow panelists. My name is Henny, and I'm talking to you here from a quiet location at COP28. I wanted to first start with a very quick journey, my story. I'm a new person to sustainability. I'm actually a technical person with a PhD in search, extensive experience in building and using language models. When I started learning about sustainability, I wanted to accelerate my own journey, especially to overcome the alphabet soup of acronyms and abbreviation in the ESG space. I especially wanted to learn about, as someone who works in a tech company as Microsoft, and I'm going to a climate tech event at COP28. I wanted to learn how I can assess a sustainability or a climate tech initiative. What makes a good, impactful climate initiative? I wanted to learn as well in terms of the digital technologies in accelerating sustainability. So of course, I used ChatGPT, and I got, and maybe I should have used the Bing chat instead of ChatGPT, but I got some answers here, and I wanted to understand the role of digital technologies, not any technologies, but digital technologies such as AI, such as our cloud solutions, products and tools, how they are enablers to accelerate a company's journey in the sustainability space. And you can see the results are very good for my 2 questions. And these are 2 questions now I always ask myself when I go to any conference or any customer or partner meeting: how can I assess and understand the impact of any climate initiative, a climate initiative, and what is the role of digital technologies to accelerate sustainability for those customers? So I could have just taken these points and put them in PowerPoint Copilot and generated the slides for you, but I wanted, and I'll be done. And that's an example of actual digital empowerment today for masses, for people, for sustainability professionals. But I decided to put a few slides together. What I wanted to, continuing with the questions that I've showed, and I wanted to understand a little bit, and reading the book How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. There's really 5 very important questions to understand the climate initiative's impact, how impactful this is. The first question is how to avoid or how much of the 51 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions are we talking about? And this question is really important for you to always think about when people throw numbers at you. So when somebody says, we're going to plant 30,000 trees to offset the emission of these many factories or these many cars in the street, what does this really mean? Is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? Is it impactful or not? And this is why that 51 billion number tons of emissions, which is the yearly emissions added to the atmosphere each year, the number has to relate to that. So if I tell you that Microsoft today generates 0.003% of that number, then you can assess if Microsoft as well is offsetting or removing carbon, or Microsoft's initiatives in the climate or in the sustainability space are actually impactful and useful or not. The second question is, what about cement, steel, and plastic and others? So I don't want us to be tunnel vision in a particular industry, but we need to consider materials such as steel, cement, and plastic, which together account for almost 20% of the global carbon dioxide emissions. And then the third questions, when people start throwing at you the gigawatts and megawatts and these large numbers around how much power are we talking about and how do we make these numbers relatable, and what's the context or reference for us to talk about these numbers. So when you look at 1 kilowatt is what is needed to power a small household, 12 gigawatt is what's needed to power a city as big as New York. Microsoft entered into power purchase agreements for more than 13.5 gigawatt of renewable electricity capacity just this year. So when I quote these numbers, they have to be relatable to you. So this is my third question: how much power are we talking about? My fourth question is how much space. I think we all agree that there is a limited space and water on Earth today, and the current solutions that are there actually take more space for the same amount of emissions or take the same amount of space for the amount of energy, clean energy generated as when it comes to the energy generated from a fossil fuel. In fact, if you compare from a wind turbine to fossil, for the same power density, there's 5,000 times the space needed. So that's another big question. And the last question is, how much will it cost? The reason the world emits so much greenhouse gas is that as long as, of course, we just ignore the long-term damage they do, our current energy technologies are by far cheaper than the ones available. So that's my fifth question. And coming from Bill's book, I add two more questions which I feel are very related to the topic that I'm discussing today. The first one is why not just remove the carbon? Well, we cannot do that because it's physically impossible or very, very difficult to do. 50% of the world's landmass is needed to remove just the US emissions. So someone else would say, okay, can we use something like direct air carbon capture and storage, the DAC and DACs? But then commercially it doesn't make sense. And I give you numbers here that 5.1 trillion, which is 6%, again, using a reference, 6% of the world GDP is required to remove the yearly greenhouse gas emissions. The second really big question is that I always ask to understand whether climate initiative is impactful or not. What about skills and awareness? And today, there aren't enough people with the required skills and know-how to deliver this transformation, the required transition to cleaner energy, or for simply companies to be able to monitor, record and report and reduce their emissions at the pace of the world needs. So we have a skill gap challenge as well. And this is where the role of technology comes in, starting with very much, if you look at the left here, what I call as sustainability digital tech. So being sustainable by default, what does it mean? It means that you first start using technology such as hosting your data, your infrastructure, your applications on a hyperscaler such as Azure or others. By just doing that, you've actually reduced your emissions by more than 90%, 90%, simply because the hyperscalers have been innovating the design, the operating of those data centers to conserve power and reduce emissions. And they also, not just that, they also replace and reduce those emissions on your behalf. Once you're able to have that sustainable digital tech, you're running your practice, let's say as an IT, is now running on a cloud and have moved to a digital technology. The second part, which is actually you cannot progress what you cannot measure, right? So this is how I must start measuring and reporting on my emissions, all the way to skilling and empowering the workforce, which I'll cover in the next two slides. I talked about the data centers. Just in the interest of time, I want to just mention that going with that concept of sustainable digital tech, and when you look at the green data centers across the world today, for example, for Microsoft, the effectiveness, the power use effectiveness of a data center of Microsoft is 1.12, 1.12. And the closer you get to 1, the more efficient the use of energy is today. And this is really supported by liquid cooling to a lot of the AI chips that we have, lower energy and water overheads. In Finland, 2 of our data centers are designed to harness the heat waste and contribute this to district heating, so heat the neighboring towns using the heat waste or heat coming out of the servers. In Sweden, we use rainwater and outside air to cool the servers themselves. But specifically, if I look at AI and sustainability, there are really 3 key areas that I would like you just to know, and how AI is helping on accelerating the sustainability journey. First is that AI can help in achieving net zero emissions by helping measuring, predicting, and optimizing complex systems. So very simple, how can I predict supply gas or methane leakages and preempt those leakages before they happen in my pipelines? Or how can I predict rain fires a lot more effectively? The second important one, AI can accelerate the development of new solutions, and we've seen that with the COVID vaccines and how the production of vaccines have been accelerated from years to a matter of months. And the last one, AI can power the workforce, and this is this is my last slide. Just going to give you 3 examples on that. First, using large language models, we're able to help and access and summarize archives of sustainability science, policy documents for sustainability professionals. So to make it a lot easier for them to find information, then they need to understand and manage complex sustainability challenges. If you heard my colleague Ramon yesterday, he talked about the partnership that we had with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and we've just launched a new product to the market called Greenprint, which helps small and medium enterprises disclose their emissions through a few clicks. And with the power of AI, whether AI through a chatbot-like interface is able to summarize for them and answer the questions really succinctly on what those professionals need to do, or using AI to actually autocomplete the process through which they need to and the question they need to answer for them to complete the submission of their emissions. And again, a great partner of ours in Hong Kong, Ekimetrics, comes to mind, that have actually even automated the gap assessment process. So as an organization, you can provide your documentation, you can then provide access to a regulatory framework such as CSRD, and the gap assessment with large language models gets generated for you automatically. So the language model can, or the machine learning based models can very simply tell you how well or not you're matching to the CSRD framework. Last example here in the I talked about those specialized assistants, but maybe on a workflow optimization example, where we can actually have virtual helping farmers to stay up to date with the latest information and provide them with better advice, more efficient, in a more efficient way for them, and also helping sustainability professionals make better decisions towards net zero by simply drawing correlations between their activity data and the calculated emissions in real time. I'll pause here. I hope this was beneficial. I wanted to quickly just show you a few questions you can ask to understand the impact of climate initiatives, how AI is especially empowering today professionals, and how the three areas we look at using AI to accelerate the sustainability journey for our customers and partners. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Henny. Very wonderful talk. You talk about sustainability and AI, and actually, in these 2 days, lots of our speakers also talk about the AI. For example, you mentioned about farmer and also some of industry. And yesterday, the AUO, the display panel company, the leading company, they also talk about the green and the digital coalitions, how they did by using the AI to help them to do the good job. So probably in the future, we can talk more things about this. Thank you very much. And later on, we will have a panel discussion. Right now, actually, we have a presentation from the Koshikazuka Noro-san, and he's my good friend. And right now, he had another role, the chair of the Green and the Digital Consortium. And he's from the Tokyo University and also the Japan Electronic Information Technology Association. Okay. Please play the video.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Noboru Koshizuka. I am a chair of Green by Digital Consortium, JEITA Japan, and also a professor of the University of Tokyo. Today, I'm very honored to be here and to make a presentation in the session of emerging technologies to tackle with climate change, digital empowerment. So my topic of this session is challenges of Green by Digital initiative using emerging technologies in Japan. And my name is Noboru Koshizuka. I'm working as a professor of the University of Tokyo, and also I'm leading several organizations. Most of the organizations are related to digital technologies. And for example, the Data Society Alliance, a Smart City Social Implementation Consortium, and also the Green by Digital Consortium, JEITA. So today I would like to talk about this issue as a chair of Green by Digital Consortium, JEITA. And this organization, Green by Digital Consortium JITA, was established September 2021, about 3 years ago. I am a chair. And we have three working groups, visualization working groups, this is the decarbonization working group, and environmental activity data valorization working group. And the mission of our Green by Data Consortium is to contribute to the realization of carbon neutrality in 2050 by optimizing the whole of Japanese industry and society through initiatives related to the digitalization of environment-related fields and creation of new business model. And also, I'm a professor of the University of Tokyo, and I'm a professor of the computer science. First of all, I'd like to talk about the background, current status of greenhouse gas emission, Japan and the world. So, as you know, this year, 2023, summer was hottest, the very hottest summer. This is a record. This year, a very special year. And this graph shows a global average temperature. This have increased by more than 1 degree since pre-industrial times. Recently, the ratio of the increase is very large. And in case of Japan, the greenhouse gas emission, the situation is not so good, but not so bad, because about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the greenhouse gas emission in Japan almost the same. And this graph shows global CO2 emission by countries. And this graph shows the CO2 emission per capita by major countries. And Japan is just middle, I think, same as Germany. And next background is political situation, the green growth strategy by Japan government. 2020, about 3 years ago, in Japan, the former Prime Minister Suga, declared the realization of a green society. By the year 2050, we Japan would like to achieve a carbon neutral or decarbonized society by 2050. This is the ultimate goal of Japan. After this declaration of the carbon neutrality of Japan government, many cities in Japan declared in the same way 2050 net zero carbon. And this slide shows the name of the cities. So many cities, about 1,000 cities have been already declared the carbon neutrality. This is the situation of 2023 September. For example, this is Tokyo. In case of Tokyo, Tokyo also declared zero emission. And this is Odawara City. Odawara City is a satellite city around Tokyo. This is a very typical city in Japan. And this Odawara City has also declared clean and smart castle town. Next, I would like to explain about or review about the global warming countermeasures. The global warming countermeasures, we can divide two classes of measures, mitigation measures and adaptation measures. And these adaptation measures can be classified two more measures. Sensitivity measures and adaptability measures. And action towards the global warming countermeasures, digital is very important factor. So we have an initiative of the Green by Digital. So our organization is Green by Digital Consortiums. So we would like to realize the carbon neutrality by using digital technologies. So what can we do with Green by Digital approach? For mitigation measures, for example, the efficiency improvement of society as a whole, or this means that DX, promotion of DX, data-driven society. And second is transparency in society, open data, IoT, data collaboration infrastructure. Such kind of initiative is necessary for the mitigation measures. And third one is the green ICT or calm computing. ICT, digital technology itself, decrease the carbon emission. So such kind of approach is very important. And for adaptation measures, for example, national resilience or proactive risk work around with data, such kind of approach is very necessary. And with this vision, in Japan, we have 3 organizations for climate services, but there are many initiatives and many organizations in Japan for climate services, but I would like to mention only 3 organizations here because these 3 organizations are, I am conducted these 3 organizations, so I would like to introduce these 3 organizations. First one is the Weather by the Business Consortium, and this was established the 2017 March. I'm a chair, and we have 2 working groups, the education working group and the new weather business working groups, and the mission in the industry, academia, government collaboration in order to create new business utilizing with the data. And also the climate data is very important issue in this consortium. And this consortium have many members. About 1,000 companies and individuals are involved in this consortium. So this is very big consortium. And second one is Green by Digital Consortium. This is also my consortium. And as mentioned in the initial initially in my talk, this Green by Digital Consortium was established in JETA, inside of JETA, and the establishment is September 2021. I am a chair and the 3 working groups, as mentioned before. And this is the mission to contribute to the realization of carbon neutrality in 2050 by optimizing the whole Japanese industry and the society through initiative related to digitalization of environment-related field and the creation of new business models. And this consortium have about 150 companies. So these companies are all big companies and also including the global companies. These companies are involved in our Green by Digital Consortium. And in this consortium, the most important activity is to integrate the green initiative and the digitalization initiative and to establish a green society or carbon neutrality by fully using the digital technologies. So we have many activities, for example, carbon data visualization or decarbonization project, and global communication for harmonizing at a global level. And for example, as a result of our activity, we have published a report of visualization working group, and we would like to establish a data infrastructure for calculating CO2 gas emission, GHG emission in the supply chain. For such objective, we are developing a standard and also the standardized data infrastructure in Japan. And third organization is a Smart City Social Implementation Consortium. This consortium had also established last year, May 2022. That I am the chair also of this consortium. And the mission of this consortium is to support planning and developing and implementing the deployment of smart city services and to accelerate the social implementation of smart cities. And we have many members. We have many members, about 100 companies, and local government are the member of our smart city social implementation consortium. And in this consortium, we are providing some climate-related services in this consortium. For example, Real Hazard Bureau by Toppan Corporation, and disaster prevention dashboard system, and evacuation action support services, hydrogen initiatives. Many companies are providing this kind of climate-related services in this smart city social implementation consortiums. So next, I would like to provide example of digital empowerment for this kind of carbon neutrality measures using emerging technologies for enabling the climate change world. So I think the green or carbon neutrality is not only the environment problem now, but it's also industrial or economical problem. For example, in Japan, the ESG information disclosure is required by Tokyo Stock Exchange. So many companies in the prime market must disclose the information of the ESG. This ESG information must based on the regulation of the task force on climate-related financial disclosure. And the second background is EU new battery regulation. This regulation has started July 10 in this year. And also EU have another regulation for the carbon border adjustment mechanism, so-called CBAM regulation. This came into effect in this year. So we need data infrastructure for the carbon emission, greenhouse gas emission data calculation and certification. So in Japan, we have in Green by Data Consortium are now developing the data infrastructure for the carbon emission data calculation and certification in the supply chain of many products. And in this case, the most important problem is security or secret. Because in calculating GHG gas emission or CO2 gas emission, many companies must export the company data outside of the company. But in normal case, many companies do not want to export data to other companies because it's a secret, the company secret. But if the company do not export data, CO2 data or GHG gas emission data outside of the company, we cannot calculate the supply chain GHG gas calculation. So we need a technology for privacy enhancing technology. But we have many kinds of the privacy enhancing technology, such as federated learning homomorphic encryption or secret sharing method or trusted execution environment. This is supported by a very sophisticated hardware. In this slide, I would like to introduce an example. This example is a trusted GHG gas calculation mechanism in a data space infrastructure. In this infrastructure, we are using homomorphic encryption technologies. So this infrastructure can calculate GHG gas emission in the supply chain, for example, on the basis of Scope 3 protocols. But in this case, data provider, when data provider export GHG gas emission data, in this case, data provider can export only encrypted data. Only encrypted data. So raw data is protected inside of data provider. But the calculation server, this calculation server make a calculation of the CO2 emission data, collected CO2 emission data from many companies, and sum up the whole CO2 data and calculates the total CO2 emission data. Such kind of calculation can be done in the encrypted data format. So this is very good because we can calculate the CO2 emission totally in the supply chain, but the data provider can keep their own raw data inside of the company. The data provider only must export encrypted data. So this kind of the trust technology is necessary for supply chain GHG gas emission calculation. So this is a very good example of the high level technology in this green decarbonizing society. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Noburo, and a very wonderful talk. And Noburo-san, sometimes we talk. Noburo-san is my very close friend, and actually, we work for a long time, especially about the open data, AI, green and digital, and we have lots of things working together. So such is kind of the outcome in Asia. I had a show in the OECD. I remember in this September, I was invited to be the expert of the OECD to join their expert meeting about the open data. So it's such is the same thing. But I think Barbara from the OECD can understand what we did right now, and probably we have some cooperation in the future because in COP28, some people talking about carbon reduction. However, the real thing is the data come from, and our pavilion focus on the digital, especially the data. So it's very useful for us to know. So lots of the kind of the version we should do. And however, we still need one organization and some of the research tank to help us to organize everything in the future. So I will give the floor to the Barbara, and she is the acting head, Division of Open Data and Innovative Government, OECD. Barbara, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone. I'm gonna share my slides, and you let me know, please, if they are visible correctly.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, please.
Yeah, perfect. So hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and join this interesting conversation, bringing the open data perspective into the conversation and how data can be a tool for digital empowerment in the context of the climate action. So first of all, the project we have on open data broadly was started in 2013, and it's a project that is very much in line with the way of working of the OECD, focuses on, first of all, doing analytical work on the policies and initiatives existing in governments for open data, Second, in working individually with countries to see how they can improve actions at the national level. And three, measure the efforts done by governments to increase the availability, accessibility, and reuse of their government data made available as open data. Within the framework of this project, that now has been in place for over 10 years, we now are digging a bit more, or are trying to bridge, I would have to say, the whole conversation around open data and with climate action, because we did realize, and you'll understand why I'm saying this in a few slides from now, that there's a big opportunity, which is at the moment not captured fully, to increase the availability of data sets, which are very relevant for the fight against climate disruption. And second, how can we all together, as we advance these agendas at a national level, make it as an agenda for international cooperation. So the focus of the more recent activities we started on open data for climate action focus, first of all, in bridging the climate data gap, the way we define it, meaning identifying what are the data sets relevant for climate action that can be made available more prominently at the national level. Also to promote a trustworthy use of this data in a standardized manner across borders as well. Second, to identify how these data sets can actually improve climate policy making. For example, in helping tracking policy impact on mitigating climate change, or informing the development of data-driven climate policies, or strengthen also the societal resilience to climate-related disruption. And three, the idea is how can this data then become a tool to foster empowerment, in the sense of they become an opportunity or a resource for engaging, for example, the tech community to deliver together solutions or better understanding or answers to certain problems. And this means, for example, that by making more open data available, the focus can be also in developing APIs for climate data reuse. Open data can also be used to stimulate a community-driven innovation action through, for example, hackathon events. And three, open data can become a way to favor collaboration across society, bringing together, for example, the industry, the government, and the civil society organization to identify specific activities which are part of the climate action. So in this sense, for us, and I'm trying to, okay. So in this sense for us, we are not, of course, operating in a vacuum. This is very much fitting into the broader context in which the efforts have been trying to raise awareness across societies, not only among governments, on the climate objectives and how data can actually improve actions made by governments in line with the climate objectives. I'm not going to mention things that are very known to you and that you're aware of, but the Kyoto Protocol of '97, the post-Kyoto Conference, and the COP21 Paris Agreement are some of the most prominent, evident examples of how the awareness and the understanding of the importance of data for climate action was actually brought to the surface and became a way to start building a common agenda also across countries. With time, what I think became more obvious was the gap in terms of data availability. And we are talking about, again, data sets which are relevant for reinforcing the climate action. The IPCC 22 report understood and stresses the importance of decisions that are based on comparable climate data. COP26 highlighted the urgency to enhance the quality, availability, and comparability of climate-related data. And the G20 underscored the importance of increasing data sharing and access to data and to keep, for example, administrative records as a way to support this policy data gap, or to bridge the policy data gap. And it's the UN environmental program that underlined how, among the big conversations at the UN level on the importance of data for informed policy making, there's still a journey to cover to make sure the data is available also to measure the environmental related SDG targets. So in this sense, for us has also been important to try to understand a little bit how can, in this broad overview of the initiatives that have been put in place in line with the framework that I just described to actually fill this data gap, how can we fit in, considering what the Commission is doing, what the G20 has been doing, what the World Bank is doing, and what the UN more broadly is doing. And the COP is definitely the main place and moment to reflect around these issues. And so the idea was for us to try to see how our Open Government Data Project, but in particular the Our Data Index, can be a tool to join these efforts. And the Open Government Data, as I said, is a project that we put in place about 10 years ago to try to raise awareness among governments on the importance of making data available in machine-readable formats, data which are produced, collected, or owned by governments, enforcing a non-discriminatory access to this data and fostering the accessibility, the possibility of sharing, and the reuse free of charge of this data. So the Our Data Index, which our data stands for Open, Useful, and Reusable Data Index, focuses, as I said, in understanding and then helping advance efforts made by governments to increase data availability, data accessibility, and data reuse. And what we have been doing in the past few years with the 4 editions of the index has been also to raise awareness on some of the emerging trends. So as governments try to, again, increase accessibility, availability, and reuse of data to create value, the work has been also to identify an emerging issue or emerging topic on which we wanted to zoom a little bit our attention, which is why in the last edition of the index, which will be released in a few weeks, the idea was also to zoom on a little bit on open data for climate action and to try to understand in particular how the efforts of governments are evolving when trying to make available data sets which are relevant for the climate action. And that's why the last version of the last edition, of the index focuses on policies that are around 85 different data sets, including some data sets which are important for climate action. This is the example of the index, how it looks like, the measurement around the 3 main pillars. But this is the 2019 edition to be replaced, as I said, in the 2023 edition coming up in a few weeks. So what is new in the index that you will see? As I said, we try to bridge the climate data gaps with the climate objectives to identify and provide evidence, first of all, on data gaps, and second, to support governments in understanding which data sets should be prioritized for release as open data to support the climate action, and also to promote the publication of climate-related government data sets in open data. We've been looking at a number of data sets as part of these 85 high-value data sets that we've been focusing on, asking governments to provide information on the accessibility, availability, and the efforts made by government to foster the reuse of these specific data sets that look at air and water quality, renewable energy and fossil fuel consumption, geospatial data, climate-related data, data on land use, land cover and forestry, data on fishing and agriculture, and data on protected areas to understand also natural risk zones, among other data sets, to understand how these data sets are essential, for example, to reach climate objectives around net zero emission by 2050, biodiversity and ecosystem protection, in line with the objectives of the Sustainable Development Goals, to better manage water and marine resources, for climate resilience and disaster management, for example. So what we realized is that in these 25 climate-related data sets, which are part of these 82 data sets that we have been looking at, we asked to what extent these data sets, in the release of these data sets as open data, are in line with objectives of some international climate agreements. We also try to focus, for example, to what extent among these data sets, what was the maturity in terms of increasing the quality, the reliability, and the reusability of these data sets, because, as I said, the index also tries to understand the level of accessibility. And when we look at accessibility, it's not enough to say, okay, this data that is available on a portal, provided that the data is available in open format and is not a PDF, but accessibility increases also because the quality of the data is high, the reliability of the data, and the usability of the data is high. This is the long list of 25 datasets that I just mentioned, which were part of the 82 datasets that we asked governments to provide evidence on if they were made available as open data. And what we see is actually that there is a very, these are the results on the availability of open data for climate action by all the 38 countries that participated in the index. And what we see is that there's a big gap in terms of availability of this data as open data. Higher availability of data in agriculture, for example, very low availability of open data in the category of water supply across different countries that have completed the survey. So that's very interesting because that shows that there's space for improving the availability of government data, which are relevant for the climate action, as open data for others to do something with that. That's very important because for us, again, I keep insisting so much on the three areas, which is accessibility, availability, and reuse, because the OECD, since moment zero that we started working on open data, we really emphasize the point that without making the effort to foster the reuse of the data, without the reuse of the data, there's no value being created. So when we talk about open data or data as a key strategic asset for climate action, is extremely important, A, to perhaps increase the efforts to make sure that this data is made available as open data. But second, can we connect with the broader ecosystem, as I said, of the industry, of the civil society, of the academia, to make sure that this data is reused, to understand, for example, performance, to understand how we're advancing towards the achievement of the climate action objectives, which are shared internationally and then are also part of national strategies and agendas. So it's important for me now perhaps to share with you some of the good practices that we've seen across countries to connect the open data and also the emerging tech agenda. It was very interesting, the previous presentation that was focusing, for example, on AI. So for us now, the big step is also to connect open data in relation to climate action and AI. So how can we at the same time, foster the opening up of these data sets as open data, and second, connect it with the emerging use of AI across governments to fight the climate action. So there's a very interesting example from Greece using the open data for high-tech agricultural focus and strengthening the reduction of environmental footprint and costs. And the idea here is connect open data with IoT and machine learning to determine and automate the irrigation and other agricultural tasks. So how can we connect also the open data emerging tech agenda with some of the specific sector productivity agendas, like the agriculture in this case? In Slovenia, there's a very interesting example of using open data to strengthen a green future. So open data is used for waste collection waste collection companies as a way to minimize CO2 production and to reduce the environmental costs for the companies and for the public. So the purpose is to simplify the waste removal by these companies. In Austria, the very interesting project called Open Data Buddy focuses on personal interface to the world of open data to connect also AI in open data sets for easing the access to climate data sets and help imagine the renewable energies future. So it's a way to actually increase also the awareness among societies on how the future can look like. Australia has put up a project called a Greenhouse and Emissions Information System, which focuses on enhancing data visualization for the purpose of making more flexible and tailored analysis on emissions data. So the idea is really here to connect the broader objectives with the API and to make sure that open data can be used more easily. Ireland with the Smart Dublin Air Quality Hackathon had the purpose of incentivizing this collaboration with the ecosystem that I was mentioning. So the overall objective was really to make pollution data and insights available for others, for actors outside of governments to actually come up with solutions, with decision models that would help also most vulnerable communities fight air pollution in Dublin. So here the idea was also to open up data, to engage in collaborations, and to have an impact on people's lives, or show what the impact could be on people's lives. And last but not least, in Canada, the Intensity, Duration, Frequency project has the purpose of assisting forecasting future rain events, or considering also the intensity, the duration, and the frequency of these events. So the idea is really to facilitate evidence-based decision-making for climate change adaptation and minimizing the physical climate risks for communities. So these examples are all examples that somehow aim to show how, if we connect the open data agenda with the emerging tech agenda, with the climate action, we can actually also find ways to empower actors outside of governments to join this journey, which is the journey that should actually bring all communities together. First of all, to improve policy making, but also to have immediate, concrete ways to demonstrate what can be the impact on people's lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. You did a wonderful job, especially about the open data and the climate action. Actually, Barbara, you should be in COP. One day, had you come to the COP to talk about the issue before?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Had you ever come to the COP to talk about
No.
issue before?
No.
Oh,
never.
you should have a COP29 probably, because
Next
COP29
time.
will be in Europe. It should be have a one session talking about the issue, because you talk about the government side, and I think that each government should notice about the open data and climate action have a very strong linkage about the issue, because sometimes we was talk but no action, no data shows. So if there is no evidence and also strong connection, such kind of greenwashing will be happen. So I recommend maybe next year OECD should have a space and also has a side event to talk about it, and also encourage the country, some of the data guy to join, because if we do not have the open data from the government side, it will be a challenge to reach the net zero. Net zero just a political wording about that, but real thing, we should open the data to solve the problem. And yesterday, we invite some enterprise and also Microsoft. They also joined us. And lots of the people mentioned about in the enterprise, what they did. Because even in the enterprise, if they want to do the Scope 3, Scope 3 cover everything. So the data in one company still have some problem about the silo and the unstructured data. And so some companies share, for example, one of the company, their CEO come here to share their data, how they manage the data. They say their companies is one data only. All of the data should be put in their central system, and each department should open their data. So it's a private company enterprise data sharing. So such is kind of the example, good example, also can be government official. So I recommend maybe such is kind of issue. You did a wonderful job, and probably next year we should have a strong linkage about this topic. Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Very happy to join the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's very, very important. Henny, I'm wondering, Henny, Microsoft played a very important role, especially the Scope 3. Scope 3 means lots of the data set, not only the enterprise they did by themselves. And you mentioned the AI and also the data usage. And do you have any comment about, for example, the Professor Nobura, what they did in Japan? And I'm from Taiwan, and however, we are very close to Japan to talk about the issue very closely. We are partner working about the data issue. Do you have any comment or something about the Japan, the Professor Nobura's case, please?
Yes, I have two comments, if I may. First, on Barbara's presentation, I think it was excellent. and her everything she said on the open data initiatives are so on point. In fact, just on the chat here, I shared Microsoft playbook for accelerating sustainability with AI. And one of the key needs to be able to accelerate sustainability with AI is access to data and data infrastructure through initiatives like the OECD and open data as well. So I encourage the participants from the folks attending the call to go through the playbook and look at some of the initiatives that we're learning from, such as OECD, and also contributing to. It is extremely relevant. On Professor Noburu's discussion, I really liked and what he's talking about standardized infrastructure in Japan, which really helps create this type of a consortium or an exchange forum for data across different suppliers. When we talk about scope 3 emissions, it has the biggest challenge, whether you're manufacturing or in financial services, is how you can get the data out of your suppliers in an automated way or a simplistic way. And I mentioned Greenprint as one way. We're collaborating with the Monetary Authority of Singapore as an example, but there's a lot more out there. And that can only be achieved if there is a common infrastructure that allows for that exchange of data across different manufacturers and enterprises to be able then to access and exchange the suppliers' data for scopes, more efficient, more effective scope 3 reporting. And that will not happen without a common data framework, or open data frameworks like the one Barbara discussed, or a integrated infrastructure for manufacturers, as Professor Noburu discussed.
Yeah, thank you, Henny. I'm wondering, I have a comment to Henny because Barbara mentioned is from the government point of view is climate data and climate action. And from Microsoft and some of your data people mentioned yesterday, talking about the data, the company data, because of the scope 3, that we need the data. But from the company and also link with the other sector, it's a big ecosystem. So, for example, the Professor Noburu mentioned is a huge job, and Japan want to try to find the methodology. And I'm wondering, such as kind of issue, the Microsoft, maybe OECD, can we set up a kind of the protocol or kind of rule to help us to fasten the speed about the scope 3? Is it possible? I put this question to both of you, please.
Barbara, why don't you go first, and I'll add after.
Yeah.
Sorry, the voice broke at the end of your question.
Yeah. I mentioned, for example, right now the enterprise, what they want to do for the open their data to be one data in one enterprise. For example, big company, they are worried about for example, green and the digital transformation. So some of good example is they put all the data to one data. So yesterday there's a CEO said, okay, my company, we do not have a Excel in their computer system because they don't want to leave their data in their each one's notebook. So they one data, and such is kind of one data, not only the data set, but also link all of data together to help them to measure the scope 3. And but the problem is we still not only one company. We should combine with the other sector. For example, transportation, tourism, something. It will be a mature scope 3. So the Professor Noburu-san from Tokyo University, he mentioned about Japan is preparing to do this. And however, such is kind of point of view is from the scope 3 issues. So I'm wondering, from Microsoft or OECD. OECD is a very good organization to help us to organize such as kind of the issues, how to make a good protocol for all of the industry working together, also the government official. So such is kind of question maybe I also ask Barbara, can we deepen the progress in the future? Yeah.
Listen, I tell you so thank you. Now it's clear. I give you the answer from the OECD, which is not a technical setting, a technical standard setting body, and is not like it's not the industry providing the tech solution to be able for this data to be shared, but we are defining standards as norms, and which are not hard regulations like directives of the European Commission, but they are soft laws that when adopted by governments, they become a commitment made by the member countries to actually take concrete actions. And there's a recommendation of the OECD. So these are called recommendations. And there was a recommendation of the OECD that was adopted 2 years ago, which has a complicated name, but that answers your question. The name is on enhanced access and sharing of data when these data sets are data sets important for public interest. And it's a call for governments to actually incentivize their actions to make sure that data, which are government data, held by the private sector or held by the scientific community when relevant for public interest, and obviously the climate action is something that brings all of us around the table and it should be a common interest, they should be made available as data which can be freely accessed, shared, and reused. So I think there's something that it's a common cause that needs to bring all the parties together around the table, putting their individual interests aside for something that is of a higher level, which is the public interest, which is an agenda that needs to be reinforced. Now, if the focus is on that agenda as a joint agenda, which sometimes is not seen as a joint agenda, then obviously there's still going to be restrictions seen by the individual parties that claim that for whatever reason, they cannot make more of their own data available as data that can be accessed and reused. But I really think that, again, from an OECD perspective, this recommendation will be our tool to make sure that not only governments open up their data, but governments also take actions to make sure that the whole actors are around the table, because there's a role that also governments need to play in this sense.
Yeah. Henny, please. Yeah.
I'll just, I think, really great points by Barbara. I'll summarize it in maybe for three things to look at. First is investing in filling the critical data gaps. So Professor Nobouro talked about a particular industry, but that doesn't cover other industries that will have the same need for access to data, whether it's about small and medium enterprises, where it's biodiversity data, or data coming from more emerging or developing countries that are not covered by a lot of the standards today. The second really important aspect when it comes to infrastructure and digital and data, developing digital and data infrastructure for AI and sustainability is to look at the AI-ready data standards. So as Barbara talked about, interoperability and accessibility challenges, and building a digital infrastructure that enables the integration of different data types across domains. That is something that tech companies has to fill the gap. So we've launched the Microsoft Planetary Computer as something that helps challenge providing access towards critical environmental data sets, standardized, harmonized data models that can be used for AI and other analytics and other applications. But also, how does that happen on a governmental level? An initiative that Monetary Authority of Singapore is coming in on standardizing data representation for emissions across the banks, for example, is something that comes to mind. And the last thing, we cannot forget that we need to still figure out broad access to digital infrastructure where there is no internet and there is no internet connectivity or there's no internet-enabled devices. And this is how recent government AI index shows that many countries, particularly in Africa, are lagging the rest of the world in the ability to make advantage of the AI revolution simply because there's no internet access available for them, and how, again, tech companies have a responsibility to bridge that gap. So these are 3 points from my end.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And Hania, thank you. I'm wondering, the Copilot have a special service for the sustainability or not?
We have an ESG Copilot service launched by our partners, and this is really how we can empower sustainability professionals so they focus less on reading long documents and policies and becoming more focused on measurements, how they will push the actual reduction or meeting and the reduction of the emissions of their companies. Those Copilot-like features include summarization capabilities, question and answering based on the company's sustainability data. And we've seen that deployed with a number of customers in a quite effective manner today.
Yeah, thank you. Barbara, actually, I'm a data guy, and I also get involved with Green, so Green Cross Digital. And however, the COP meeting, it's my 11th COP here, and the problem is here the people don't understand the digital and also the data, and the data people do not understand the green, the climate issue. So, for example, from the government point of view, the policy, I think the COP, UNFCCC need the OECD to help them to set up a more detailed data policy about the climate action. I recommend. The second is we should combine all the tools. The tools, maybe Microsoft Copilot or something, can help us to collect the data, measure the data, and how to help the company or each government official to break the silo and the unstructured data sets. So it's a technical issue, and some are maybe some ethical issue we should do. For example, the Professor Nobura-san also mentioned some companies, the data, they don't want to share because it's privacy sometimes. How to have a good role? For example, some people mentioned yesterday, it should be blockchain to reserve the data. So I recommend probably such as kind of talk we should continue, because right now there is no clear answer until now. So probably, Barbara, you should leave us to organize all of this, because I know OECD, you have a roadmap about this one, but you should collect all of the ecosystem together in the future. Please.
Listen, I completely agree. First of all, I think there's a problem of verticality and silo mentality inside of governments. So even different parts of government, the one dealing with the climate action or the green agenda, the ones dealing with the digital agenda, and the ones dealing with the data agenda, after time, they don't breach with each other. So I think the big responsibility we have on our side is, first of all, to try to bridge between policy agendas or help governments become more horizontal when they're thinking about green, digital, and data. And second, I agree with you, it's about the ecosystem. So how to bring all the different actors around the table. And three, I think it's about, those are things that are part of the role of the OECD. It's also creating a common agenda across borders. So when we had, you may recall that when we had the meeting of the delegates responsible for open data across OECD countries in September, there was a call perhaps to start identifying data sets which are relevant for the climate action that could be made available as open data in a standardized manner across different countries for reuse across countries. So I think there's also a space for being more horizontal when it comes to international cooperation and having governments join up efforts in relation to common actions they can take that then can make the agenda also stronger across borders. Because, you know, I think one thing is making those agendas more democratized, more, let's say, joined up by the ecosystem nationally, but then much more can be achieved if this horizontality is also achieved across borders. So definitely, I think those three levels, bringing down the silos in governments, inside of societies, and across borders, I think should be a priority.
Okay, thank you. You played a very important role, and probably we should prepare another dialogue event about this one, because in Asia, some country did a good job, and some totally. I know the Korea and Japan, and also in Taiwan, we have a different roadmap about this one. So such is kind of the protocol or kind of policy was needed in the future, because something we should do is if we did not have a clear map about this one, you will waste a lot of time. So probably we should work together about this issue in the future. Okay, maybe I give some maybe summary for all of you two. Maybe Henny, do you have some less talking about this topic, please?
Say one more time. Sorry, I didn't get the point.
I mean, I want to make a summary. The last you do have something to talk.
No, please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah. I would like to thank you all of you to join us, and I hope such is kind of the talk we should keep going, and because it's dynamically, and I hope the OECD and also from the TCP, we have lots of industry. For the ICT industry, that they are the digital company, and what they did right now is very solid, and they also face the problem of how to break the silo and unstructured data sets. And we some company have the experience, and especially the Microsoft have a lot of the company already did in their ecosystem. However, the big ecosystem, we still need a good roadmap in the future. So I hope we can still have some chance to discuss and have some good example in the future. For example, right now, in this event, in this our pavilion, what we talk is some companies good example. Not too much, and we have some already. But for the country point of view or city point of view, we still need some good example to help the enterprise, the policy maker, how they can do in the future. So I would like to thank you all of you to join us, and hope we can continue to dialogue, and probably next COP29 we can meet together in the future. Okay. Do you have anything to want to mention about, or Henny or Barbara?
No, I just want to say thank you very much for TCP for organizing this and inviting us. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and listening to Barbara and the rest of the panelists. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Barbara, please.
Same here for me. Thank you so much, and happy to keep the conversation going.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.